Hey everybody, so Mr. Youse here with another riveting algebra lesson for you guys. So I'm sorry that I couldn't be here this morning, but to make up for it, we're going to do this lesson via video. So if you need help, if you're still not understanding the lesson after I do it on here, I am going to be back for the second half of today. So what I can do is create a PLT so that you guys can come over and get some extra instruction if learning virtually is not your thing. I know personally it's not my thing. I do better with face-to-face instruction, so we can always go over this again if you want to come over for a PLT this afternoon. All right, so we're starting today with quadratic equations. So I'm going to put an example up here on the board for you. This involves more factoring like what we've been doing. There's no good. All right, let's try another one here. We've got x squared minus 9x plus 20, and now we're adding a new part to it, equals 0. So here's what we're gonna do. We need to figure out what x could equal if this all equals 0. So we're going to factor this just like we learned in the last unit. So that factors down. This is a pretty simple one. So again, two numbers that will multiply together to make positive 20, and when added together, make negative 9. So you're looking for numbers that have, that they'll add up to 9. So one way that we could work that is negative 4 and negative 5. Make sure we check it with our FOIL. Negative 4 and negative 5 make positive 20. Negative 4x and negative 5x make negative 9x. So that equals 0. Now, you can take this to mean one of two different things. Now that you have an x equals 4 right here and an x equals 5, it's a multiplication problem and it equals 0. So that would have to mean that either x minus 4 equals 0 in order for this to be true, or x minus 5 equals 0. So we're going to get two answers here, okay? So you're either going to have x equals 4, because 4 minus 4 is 0, or x equals 5, because 5 minus 5 is 0. So we don't actually know what it is, but if you set this to equal 0, one of these two things has to be true. Either x has to equal 4 or x has to equal 5. So you narrow it down. And that's it. That's how you do that problem. So let's go on to another one. So this is what we call the zero product property. This is what we call the zero product property. If A, this would be the second slide in your notes, by the way. So if A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0. All right, this marker's done too. I'm going to go grab a better one. I'll be right back. All right, I've got one that's darker that's going to show up on the board a little bit better. So if A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B is going to equal 0. Okay, so here's an example. If x plus 5 multiplied by x minus 2 equals 0, then what do you think? X is either equal to 5, oh no, sorry, negative 5, my bad. Yeah, so x is either equal to negative 5 because negative 5 plus 5 would be 0, or x would equal 2 because 2 minus 2 is 0. So that's an example of the zero product property. Let's try another example. So if I ask you to solve, here's an example. X squared minus 5x minus 36 equals 0. So now we're gonna factor this out. Rather than try to add 36 to the other side and do kinds of algebra-y stuff, we're gonna factor instead. So put an x and another x to make your x squared. Okay, now we need two numbers that when multiplied together make negative 36 and when added together make negative 5. So you think about your multiples, or sorry, you think about your factors of 36. So you've got 1 and 36. Well, there's not a difference of 5 there. You do 2 and 18. You could do 3 and 12. You could do 4 and 9. Well, there's a difference of 5. Okay, so being that this number is negative, you have to have a plus here and a negative here. So now we just need to figure out. We've got a difference of negative 5 between them. So it's probably going to be plus 4 and negative 9. So now that we've got that figured out, we can do the rest of the problem. So it's either x plus 4 equals 0 or x minus 9 equals 0. So if you do your algebra stuff there, you figure that x equals 9, or if you do x plus 4, if you want to really do the algebra part, you can. Subtract 4, subtract 4. So x could equal negative 4 as well. So your answers are either negative 4 or 9 in that example. And we'll do another one. All right, so this one is a you try. So this one's for you to try. So we're going to set this one as y equals x squared minus 7x minus 30. So what I would like you to do right now is set y to be equal to 0. So make this y equal 0, and then pause the video and try it for yourself. And we'll come back in a minute once you've tried it for yourself and see what you get, and I'll go over it, okay? So pause the video right now and try this one on your own. Okay, so hopefully you've paused it and given it a shot on your own. Now let's go over it and see how you did. So we're gonna set y equal to 0, so it'll be 0 equals x squared minus 7x minus 30. So now we're gonna factor this just like we did in the last unit. 0 will equal, we'll put an x in the front in both cases. So now we're looking for numbers that equal to negative 30. So there's going to be a plus and there's going to be a minus when you have a negative as your third term. So they have to combine together to make negative 7 and multiply to make negative 30. So you can list out your multiples or your factors of 30, which would be 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10. Oh, there's a difference of 7 there, so that's probably it. And it's a negative 7, so it's probably a positive 3 minus 10. Yes. So then you end up with either x plus 3 equals 0, or you end up with x minus 10 equals 0. So your x is either going to be what? Negative 3. Because negative 3 plus 3 is 0, or your x is going to be 10. So that's your answer. You'll have two answers there. So x is negative 3 or x is 10. So take a look back at your math, see how you did. If you messed it up, try to figure out where it was that you messed it up at. Over onto the other side. So this one is how you find the zeros. Another example. So they give us y equals 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. Okay, so we'll set this equal to 0, the y again. So 0, and then we will split up our factors. So now this one's a little bit different because we have a 3 here, yes? So we're gonna have a 3x right here, and then an x over here to make 3x squared. Okay, so now we need two numbers that when multiplied together, they will equal -8. Actually, let's do helicopter for this, sorry guys. All right, so you've got 3 times 8 is 24. Yeah, how did I miss that? We gotta do helicopter. So then just for during the helicopter, you put the 3x here in both sides. All right, so now we're looking for a positive and a negative number. So they need to multiply together to make 24 and then add together to make 10. So we know that those numbers end up being, let's list out our factors of 24. So we've got 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Okay. So they have to multiply together to make 24 and add together to make 10. So here you will get, all right, so one has to be a negative, so it's got to be -2, and then this will be a +12, because -2 times 12 is 24. It's actually -24, because that minus comes up. -2 times 12 is -24, so that checks out, and then -2 plus 12 is a +10, so that checks out. So now we need to look for a greatest common factor. Between 3 and 2, we have none. Between 3 and 12, we've got a 3. So we end up with our final over here, 3x minus 2 multiplied by x plus 4. So now we have to set these equal to 0. So either 3x minus 2 equals 0 or x plus 4 equals 0. So this guy over here is easy. It's going to be -4. So that's one of them. Then this one here, we just do a little bit of basic algebra for. So we'll add 2 to the other side. So you get 3x equals 2, and then divide out by 3. So you get x equals 2/3. So it's either 2/3 or -4. Those would be your answers. So the next one we'll solve from the next slide. Okay. All right, so there's a slide on here. So it's for every problem that we've solved, it's always the quadratic function equals 0. So you set the function, whatever it is that they're giving you, to equal 0. If there's terms on both sides, you want to move everything to one side, and we call those solutions roots or zeros. So let's do one final example here, and then I will turn you loose to do the homework. So our last example is 5x squared minus 16x plus 15 is equal to 4x minus 5. Okay. So to get rid of everything over here, we have to move it over here. So we need to subtract it all. So we're going to subtract 4x minus 5. And then we're also going to subtract 4x minus 5 over here. So here's what you end up being left with. When you combine like terms, you'll get 5x squared minus 20x plus 20. Right? Because when you subtract, whoops, I'll show you this part here. When you subtract that 4x minus 5, this 4 becomes a negative. So that negative 4x combines with the negative 16 to make a negative 20. And this double negative makes it a positive 5. So you're adding 5 to that 15 there to make 20. Understand? So So all of that is then set equal to 0 because we got rid of all of that on this side. So there's a 0 that's left on the right side. So now we have to factor this out. So you look for a greatest common factor first, which we have one, it's 5. So 5 multiplied by, so we have x squared left, minus, and then 5 goes into 20 4 times. X is left over. And then we add 4. So that all equals 0. Now we're ready to factor. So x squared minus 4x plus 4. So don't forget to bring the 5 with. So then we have an x here and an x here. So the numbers have to multiply together and make a positive 4, and they add together to make a negative 4. So that's probably 2 and 2, and it's going to end up being negatives, because negative 2 times negative 2 makes positive 4, negative 2 plus negative 2 makes a negative 4. So that checks out. So now that we have this 5 here, that 5 can actually go away, because what's going to make this 0 is either this expression or this expression. And in this case, they both happen to be the same. So you don't even have 2 answers for this one. You're only going to have 1 answer. So it's x minus 2 is set equal to 0. There's only one thing x can be, and that is 2. So there's your final example. That's how we solve quadratics, by setting y equal to 0. If you have any questions, again, send me a message on Schoology, or we can get together during PLT. So I'll then have the substitute pass out your homework to you, and you can get started on that. All right, thank you, and have a great day.